Chapter 81. Huebner's Third Rule of Mountaineering. Expect dead ends.
There will be times when you come to a fork in the road and, after much deliberation, choose the wrong way. A great deal of time and money will be lost before you can correct your mistake. Get over it. The secret of strategic planning is to budget both time and money for dealing with the truly unexpected, so that when it happens, your plan doesn't fall apart. When driving to the airport to catch a flight, we always allow an additional 15 minutes for a traffic jam. We have no way of knowing where it will be, only that there's likely to be one. International business consultants Fox and Mancuso advise their clients, in calculating rough costs for a product made overseas, add 20% to the cost of the product when it leaves the plant, wherever that is. Notice that Fox and Mancuso don't pretend to know exactly why the extra money will have to be spent, only that it will. Do you take dead ends into consideration in your planning, or are you planning to do business in a dream world? It's impossible to forecast when problems will arise, but it's fairly certain that they will. Are you mentally prepared for them? Do you have the tenacity to persevere, or will you panic and throw your hands into the air crying, "I didn't plan on this"?
Chapter 82. Don't get your panties in a bind.
Acquaintances with important degrees from important universities are often outraged when they learn how much I charge for the benefit of my private observations. When I cheerfully and openly admit to these friends that I do indeed fabricate all that I know or think I know from the raw material of my own experience, it always puts their panties in a bind. In other words, it makes them extremely uncomfortable. My educated friends don't feel it's right somehow that a person should be able to sell what he has learned, when the method of his learning has been unsupervised listening and watching and reading and asking. They feel that I should be poor. I'm telling you this because I'm about to share with you a controversial observation that might possibly be wrong, though I am unconditionally convinced of the truth of it. If you disagree with me, please don't let it twist your trousers. I believe that most business people are unnecessarily preoccupied with the future. These business people see the world changing at a precipitous rate and consequently assume they must correctly forecast the future if they hope to find any success there. I completely disagree. No one will ever be able to forecast the events of tomorrow. Prognosticators of the future are wrong far more often than they're right. If you and I are to prepare for the future, I believe we must study the past. Those shorts still okay? The simple truth is that we're not making new mistakes. We're making the same old mistakes over and over again. Most of us will probably continue to make the old mistakes far into the future. I believe we are attracted to the future like moths to a flame, because the future is titillating, exciting, unknowable, fantastic. And the boring past can always be viewed with 20/20 hindsight. But that's the magic of it. If you study and learn from the recurrent mistakes humankind has made throughout the centuries, and if you study the recurrent elements of our greatest successes, then you'll be prepared for the future, regardless of what tomorrow may bring.
Failure is success if we learn from it. Malcolm Forbes.
Chapter 83. Of all the bad luck.
Dean Rhodes met Dave Thomas long before Dave ever opened his first Wendy's Hamburgers location. Fort Wayne wasn't a large town in those days, so when I needed an extra hand, I'd often call on young Dave to help me out. "It's a great pity for me that I didn't invest in Wendy's," says Dean, "because I really liked that boy, and always knew that he would someday do something big." Strike one. Dave worked at the local Kentucky Fried Chicken location, one of the Colonel's first. "I met Colonel Sanders," says Dean, "and I had the opportunity to buy stock in his company early on. But I didn't agree with some of his ideas, so I didn't invest in it." Strike two. Like Dave Thomas and Colonel Sanders, Dean was also something of a pioneer in food service. It was his company, Lincoln Manufacturing, that perfected the first system for keeping food hot while it was waiting to be served. Despite everything I tried, I could not succeed. I was barely making payroll. I remember many an evening pacing the floor in my office trying to think through what I was doing. Since I was in the restaurant equipment business, it wasn't uncommon for me to have several equipment salesmen in my waiting room, each one hoping to be able to meet me and sell me something. One of these fellas, Ray was his name, sold a gadget called a multi-mixer that could make 5 milkshakes at a time. He was very pleasant, but didn't appear to me to have any unusual or outstanding characteristics that would inspire me to invest in his new venture. So when I heard that Ray had bought a little hamburger stand called McDonald's, I chose not to invest. Strike 3. Ultimately, my Lincoln system of food service was adopted by schools and institutions throughout the USA, and a whole new industry was born. Finally, I could afford to take a much-needed vacation, so I decided to go on a cruise. During the cruise, I met an attorney from the Pacific Northwest who told me some really funny stories about how his son Billy and his friends would sit on the kitchen table and try to make useful gadgets from baskets of electronic components. He told me his son was really bright and that I should consider investing in his boy's new company. I thought, what kind of dumb kid would name a company Microsoft? What's soft about an electronic gadget? So I didn't invest. Oh, wait a minute. Wasn't Dean supposed to leave the batter's box after the third strike? Right now you're thinking Dean Rhodes probably spends most of his time telling sad stories about what might have been, right? Well, nothing could be further from the truth. You see, Dean pursued his own vision, investing everything he had in himself and his dream, until the day he saw his name at number 289 on the Forbes list of the 400 most successful business owners in America. The little company that could barely make payroll was now doing more than $410 million in annual volume. Later, it did $689 million. In the game of life, there's no rule that says you have to leave the batter's box after your third strike. If you're smart, you'll do like Dean and just keep on swinging till you finally hit a grand slam. The game's not over till you walk away from the plate.
Giving up is the ultimate tragedy. Robert J. Donovan. Part the 6th. How then should we live? In which the wizard explains the art and science of life. Chapter 84. The American Year.
White wind is duty, pure and clean. Yellow fire has high and lofty dreams. Red earth is all adventure, Tom Sawyer to the core. Blue rain is quiet wisdom, who could ask for more? North, south, east, west, arrows pointing in 4 directions, the compass that brought us here. Winter, spring, summer, fall, a quartet singing in harmony, the 4 faces of our year. George, Tom, Teddy, Abe, a mirror in shining Dakota granite, reflecting what we hope to gain. Washington, Jefferson, Roosevelt, Lincoln. White wind, yellow fire, red earth, blue rain. Yes, I'm in one of those strange moods that makes people sometimes wonder if I have a ponytail and play guitar. The answers, by the way, are no and no. This poem comes from my recent realization that the soul of America is perfectly revealed in the faces on Mount Rushmore. George Washington was a man driven by obligation and sacrifice, the perfect symbol of every father who ever marched off to war. Thomas Jefferson was a visionary of high ideals who saw in his heart what America ought to be, but in his flesh felt short of it. He wrote, all men are created equal, and inspired hundreds of his countrymen to free their slaves. Yet Jefferson never freed his own. The author of the document that made us a nation, Thomas Jefferson, lived a life of quiet hypocrisy. But I'm reluctant to cast the first stone. How often have I failed to live up to the standards I believe in? Teddy Roosevelt was rambunctious in his boyish enthusiasm, as much a maverick and a renegade as any hippie who ever burned a draft card. Abraham Lincoln, physically ugly, but he held us together with the wisdom and tenacious commitment of a mother watching over her children, the embodiment of American grit and determination. No single one of these figures is capable of telling the American story alone, yet together they sing it in perfect harmony. 4 faces on a mountainside, the 4 seasons of the American year.
Chapter 85. Will you go for the high note?
In one of his inquisitive moods, my friend Eric Rhodes recently asked Joan Rivers, "Why does one performer become a living legend while other performers fade off the scene? What exactly is the difference between a star and a superstar?" Like most of Eric's questions, this one seemed unanswerable to me. But then, I'm not Joan Rivers. "Eric, that's easy," said Joan. "Most stars play it safe because they have too much to lose. Superstars are the ones who throw caution to the wind, improvise impulsively, go for the high note. Superstars give it everything they've got and hold back nothing at all. In a word," said Joan, "the difference is guts." I'm convinced Joan Rivers was right. How many times have we seen the favored ice skater come in second because she played it safe and did the double toe loop instead of going for the triple? How many times have we seen a basketball team give up an insurmountable lead when they attempted to play it safe and tried to stall? How many times has a football team lost the game by retreating into a prevent defense? It appears to me that playing it safe is about the least safe thing you can do. In our office, when someone has been acting fearful or small, standard procedure is to show him a forefinger and thumb, held about a half-inch apart. I've never been exactly sure what this gesture means, but it seems to say, go for the high note. Don't be a weasel. Attempt the triple toe loop. Does everyone who attempts the triple toe loop come from behind to win the gold medal? Nope. Sometimes they just land in a heap on the ice. So what will it be? Will you go for the gold, or should I hold my forefinger and thumb half an inch apart as I look into your eyes? The auditorium is dark. The audience is waiting. The spotlight awaits your arrival. What are you going to do?
Undertake something that is difficult. It will do you good. Unless you try to do something beyond what you have already mastered, you'll never grow. Ronald E. Osborne.